Have you ever had a food or a drink, got sick, and swore never again that you would ingest that product? If you're an adult, perhaps it was tequila. If you want to learn a little bit more about this, stay tuned to Mysteries Mysteries. I am MysterE, and we are studying all things mysterious in the world of psychology. One of the major perspectives in psychology is something called behaviorism, built on the groundwork of Ivan Pavlov and John B. Watson and B.F. Skinner. Those are all the big names, but I'm going to talk to you about a name that you may not have heard before, and his name is John Garcia. And John Garcia is a first-generation American born in the United States. His parents are Spanish. He was born and raised out in Santa Rosa, California, and his parents were farmers. And he was a brilliant man from the very beginning, and he learned how to put mufflers on submarines, and so he was a ship fitter. He was a pilot in World War II, and then he was also like a special investigator, finishing up his ranks. And he's just brilliant, right? And after all this was done, he had never been to college before, but yet he had accomplished all of these great things. And ultimately, he ended up going to Berkeley. He went to Santa Rosa Junior College, and then he went to Berkeley for his master's and PhD. And he got his master's and PhD in psychology. And he clashed a lot with a couple of the other psychologists, some of the big names, specifically Skinner. But what he taught us was absolutely amazing in direct relationship to the avoidance of certain foods. So for me, it is ham sandwiches. It's deli ham that, I mean, I got sick when I was in 9th grade, right? And the power of that experience just stuck with me forever, to the point where I still won't eat deli ham. And I'll kind of go through that process with you. We've discussed this in other podcasts, but just for a little review. So what happens is you have what is called a neutral stimulus or conditioned stimulus. In my case, it would be the ham sandwich, right? And then in the ham sandwich, there is some sort of poisoning. Maybe it's a bacteria of some sort or whatever, right? But there's something poisonous in there that makes me violently ill, right? And then every time I look at a ham sandwich after that, every time I smell one, it doesn't matter. I am not going to get close to that. And my conditioned response is going to be total avoidance to that ham sandwich. John Garcia, and that like is incredibly powerful because, like, okay, so I ate the ham sandwich. I didn't get sick right away. I got sick like 12 hours later, right? Yet I still formulated that connection. Well, John Garcia is the one that discovered this through his testing of rats. John Garcia actually got to travel with John F. Kennedy to Russia to discuss some of their nuclear issues, because all of this wildlife was getting killed downwind from their nuclear reactors. And they didn't realize that some of this radiation was permeating through the atmosphere. And John Garcia was telling you, like, listen, this isn't real good, right? So he did an experiment with rats, and he discovered this in a lab in Berkeley when he was doing some research, and it is still like prominent today, and it's incredible. So what he did is he created a conditioned stimulus. The conditioned stimulus is the neutral stimulus, is the one that really shouldn't have much of a response. And for rats, what he did is he chose something that they actually liked, which was sugar water. Rats just, they enjoy sugar water, right? So he gave them this neutral stimulus of this sugar water. But in the sugar water, he laced it with radiation. It wasn't enough to kill them, but it was enough to make them violently ill. So the rats would drink the sugar water. The sugar water would be laced with radiation, and then the rats would get violently ill. From that point forward, and the thing is, they did not get violently ill right away. It took several hours. And this was what was incredibly unique about Garcia's work, is that it wasn't an immediate unconditioned response. But even though it was several hours later, just as it was with my ham sandwich, John Garcia discovered that the power of that unconditioned stimulus, that radiation poisoning, was so strong, and the rat's response was so violent that it only took one exposure And the response did not need to be immediate. And what he discovered was that this conditioned stimulus and conditioned response pairing was so powerful that the rats from that point forward never approached the sugar water. They would actually get afraid of the sugar water. Now, there have been other things done where, like, coyotes have been and wolves have been raiding sheep farms out west, and farmers will take a carcass of a sheep and lace it with something like ipecac, and the wolves or the coyotes would come and they would see this free meal and they would eat it. And they couldn't. It was wolves, and they couldn't kill the wolves because the wolves were threatened species, so they couldn't kill them. But yet they were killing all their sheep, so they needed to do something. And so these wolves ate this sheep that was laced with this poison, and they would get violently ill. And they would get so ill from it that they actually became afraid of sheep. They would see a sheep and they would run away. And what they did, this was a generational piece. They taught their offspring to actually be afraid of sheep. So sheep herders did not need to kill the wolves. The wolves learned to avoid the sheep. Wolves learned to be afraid. Wolves learned to be afraid of the sheep. Everybody wins, except I guess the wolves no longer got a free meal. So that is another incredible example of classical conditioning. Of course, we've all learned and heard, or many of us have heard, of Pavlov's dogs. And if you've heard of Pavlov's dogs, what these are building off of is Pavlov's work with the dogs. You ring the bell, you give them the meat, and the dogs will salivate. You ring the bell, the dog will salivate, right? When that sort of thing happens, that learning takes place. But the thing that was unique about Garcia's is Pavlov's, you ring the bell to present the meat powder, the dogs would salivate immediately. But with Garcia and with these wolves, they didn't get sick right away. The rats didn't get sick right away. It took several hours later. I didn't get sick right away from the ham sandwich, yet I still will never touch ham sandwiches again. Still to this day. And I know it wasn't the ham sandwich that made me sick. I know it was some sort of bacteria, food poisoning that made me sick, but still to this day, it's brutal. So if you have a taste aversion out there, hey, drop us a note, give us a 5-star, let us know, help us climb up the ranks. A big thank you to our director and producer from Unify Agency, Bear Wade, and everything that he does for us. Hey, make sure you follow us. Check us out anywhere you can find podcasts, on Spotify, on Apple. Follow us on Insta or TikTok or YouTube Reels. Keep hitting us up. Keep enjoying this. As always, thank you. You all have a wonderful day. See ya.